5. Conflict with others, good versus evil. In the previous segment, I talked about how hunter-gatherer nomads needed help with survival, so their religion was there to give them energy, power, and hope in tough times. Animism helped us to get places, achieve things, and solve problems in order to survive and thrive in a hostile environment. In this segment, we move away from the cold climates to the heart of human civilization. Warmer and more available food through farming, therefore things are far more comfortable and predictable, so humans had the luxury to think beyond this life and worry about afterlife. But most importantly, religion was to cement and glue the empires together. The Middle East is considered the hotbed of human agricultural revolution, which turned hunter-gatherer humans into settled farmers, then large city dwellers, which later turned into empire builders. So obviously the religion had to be more sophisticated, otherwise a simple religion couldn't compete with other more refined religions. Italo Calvino, the Italian writer, said that old folk tales start off like regular rocks with rough edges, but after many retellings passed down from generation to generation, they come to us refined like smooth pebbles. The same happened to religions. Just as early stone-cutting tools turned into precision knives today, old religions collided with other religions in big agricultural towns and cities and empires to become the most sophisticated religions with deep philosophy, sacred texts, robust monuments, and massive followers. So we enter the world of religion 2.0. If animism was a religion of village people, this new religion served to the needs of sophisticated urbanites. Just as the produce that arrived in big cities had to be the cream of the crop, the religion also had to be the smooth and its rough edges removed. Animistic religions didn't care so much about morality, as survival was far more important. But among farming settlers, morality of good and evil played a crucial role in keeping society together. The myth of Abel and Cain is a Middle Eastern myth where the good guy is killed by the bad guy. Hence, the idea of good and evil was born. A. Rivers and pebbles. The Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, 6,000 years ago became the cradle of civilization due to two rivers feeding the agricultural lands surrounding them. The Tigris and the Euphrates flow from the Taurus Mountains of Anatolia, modern-day Turkey. The Himalayas had the same effect, feeding great rivers that run through India and China. The Indus River in India, the Yellow and Yangtze River in China sprang up large civilizations with sophisticated religions. So these rivers not only brought fertile soil from the Himalayan mountains, they also brought smooth pebble-like religious ideas which were more refined. But with agriculture also came private property that you were stuck with. If you were a nomad, you could take your herd of animals and move on. But landowners, you were stuck with the land, so you had to fight to defend it. While hunter-gatherer nomads were happy to move on after a fight, landowners didn't have that luxury. So conflict was inevitable. So how did religion help solve these conflicts? Not just among humans, but among competing gods. The Sumerian, the earliest human civilization which dated back to 6,000 years ago, were polytheistic. But how do you know which god to follow? To make it easy, they created a division of labor among gods. Some were in charge of water, some in charge of rain and heaven, and some in charge of fertility. This is very similar to animistic religions. But the Sumerians did something unique. They put gods into a hierarchical order. The Sumerians had an empire which included other kingdoms with their own kings and religions, so they had to create a hierarchy. Just as Sumer king was the king of all other kings, Marduk became the god of all gods. Later, the Greeks had Zeus as the king of all gods. This was later adopted by the Babylonian civilization, which took over the Sumerian civilization. So the god of all gods was conquering force, just as the king of all kings was a victorious king who had conquered others. B. Writing. As cities grow large, our human memory fails to remember everyone's names. But most crucially, we don't know who owes what to whom. It is time we invent something that is kept outside our unreliable human memory. Old stories kept changing because storytellers added things and removed things based on their mood and the audience mood. Now, we got to get a bit more serious. The Sumerians came up with the answer. They decided to create symbols so you could write things down. Writing allowed religious ideas to be written down. This made the religion more solid. Now you didn't need to rely on someone's memory, which is valuable. Now you could write the religious rules and ideas on a clay or a stone tablet and they would last many generations. The oldest written work, the Kish tablets in cuneiform, is 5,500 years old. But it's not a religious text, more like an accounting book for farming. The oldest piece of storytelling, the Epic of Gilgamesh, is Akkadian, but it was actually a Sumerian epic about a king who seeks immortality and then realizes that living forever is not such a great idea. Being stuck on this earth for eternity sounds terrible. Just like great stories, religions too competed to be written on stone tablets. Whoever won the battles to form an empire also became the dominant religion. Now that cities conquered other cities to form huge empires, it was logical to have a single god, just like a single king or a single emperor. Now that we have established a hierarchy among gods, the next logical step is to remove all the superfluous gods and leave one god that does it all. Today, scientists are scrambling for a unified theory of everything. Newtonian physics was the unified theory of matter until Einstein and quantum physics showed up. Einstein's theory of relativity, which explains giant objects, and quantum physics, which explains tiny objects, have irreconcilable differences like a married couple. So scientists today want to have a theory that tells the whole story. So the job of creating a single god who did pretty much everything was left to the ancient Persians. C. Monotheism. Zoroastrianism originated in what is now modern-day Afghanistan or northern Iran by a man named Zerdusht or Zarathustra, as Nietzsche called him, or Zoroaster, who lived between 1400 and 1200 BCE. It is considered the first monotheistic religion worshipping the one god, Mazda, not the Japanese car company, but Ahura Mazda. Nietzsche blamed the fall of humanity to Zarathustra's idea of one God or one truth. Nietzsche thought one God, one truth, and the best truth was repressive to creativity as it removes competition, just like the modern antitrust monopoly of late capitalism. But 3,000 years ago, this idea of a single God was new and revolutionary. So what does it mean? It basically means for the first time, a religion can say it is my way or the highway. Not this pluralism BS, but everyone should come under one umbrella. Now you have a real God, the only God, the truest God. All the other gods are either not real or inferior to this God. Now you could create an empire that lasted for centuries. Guess what? The Persian also came up with another concept, Shahanshah, which means king of all kings. If Mazda was the sky daddy of all other gods, the Persian king was also the earth daddy of all other kings. Zoroastrianism became the dominant religion of all the major Persian empires, including the Median, Achaemenid, Parthian, and later Sasanian Empire. It was replaced by Islam with the fall of Persian Sasanian Empire in 651 CE. Guess what? Islam also believed in one God. Today, there are still practicing Zoroastrians in Iran and India, but a very small group. Zoroastrians believe in three doctrines: good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Fire is an important element in their worship as it has cleansing power. Control of fire is perhaps one of the biggest human achievements. Cooked food takes less energy and time to digest, so our body and brain become free to do other things, think bigger things, or do more fun activities like creating religion and stories. D. Good and evil. But the most crucial idea of Zoroastrianism was to divide the world into good and evil. The good is represented by Ahura Mazda and the evil by Ahriman. So who to follow is left to us. Why? Because we all have free will. Now you cannot hide behind your parents and shrug off responsibility for your actions. For the first time, perhaps, all humans are equal, equally capable of doing good things or bad things. It is clear-cut choice. You follow Ahura Mazda, you're good, and Ahriman, you're bad. But there cannot be two truths. One has to be superior to the other one. This mathematical approach to religion became the basis of empire buildings in the Middle East and later the basis of Western civilization. Later, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam adopted the one God idea, but also the good versus evil dualism became central to not only the Western religious ideas, but also a lethal political tool. My God is the true God, my people are the true people, and my politics is for the good. So, to sum up, agriculture allowed humans to grow in population and live in bigger cities, where smaller religions collided to create bigger and more sophisticated religions. Gods too competed with other gods to produce one dominant champion of all gods. Just as empires subdued smaller kingdoms and tribes, the big gods subdued the smaller gods until we have a single God. Today, more than half of the world practices monotheistic religions. Not only that, the basis of Western civilization in which we live is a result of an early monotheism which divided the world into good and evil. In the next segment, I'll move further east to discuss ancient China and India, where they also had set up civilization on their own riverbanks. The Eastern civilizations, however, didn't care about a single god so much because they created a strict social hierarchy among their people. So religions were in harmony with reality. So the conflict is more with the self, not other people.